Let's talk to Ashok Kumar, Associate Professor of Political Economy at Birkbeck University, who specialises in trade relations. Ashok, great to have you with us on LBC. I mean, you've heard my view. My patience has completely run out with the RMT and its members. Am I wrong?
Well, I think your numbers are a bit off, Ben, if I have to be honest. The average tube driver is actually represented by a different union, so 80% of them are represented by ASLEF. Mm-hmm. Only 20% of RMT members are drivers. They make averages that are above 60,000, you're right, but the average pay for an RMT member that are going on strike, but our average member in London, is 31 to 33,000 pounds. Now, the average pay in London is about 47,500, not average, median pay is 47,500 pounds. So if we're saying, so those numbers are not correct. The second point about...
They are correct. I'm not saying everybody who's gone on strike.
I mean, come on. That is what you were implying with your...
No, at all. There are I'm saying the tube driver, the 20% of tube drivers who are striking because they think they are getting paid upwards of £60,000 and they are walking out, Ashok, because they think that 7 hours a day is too much work.
They're in one union. So the union's negotiating a higher pay increase. Yes, 20% of them who are making above the median will benefit, but the vast majority of people who are benefiting are significantly below the median. That's my point. The second point is you're saying, oh, this is exceptional. It's not exceptional, actually, because if you look, you've seen from COVID onwards, you have 2,000 fewer workers on the underground, and you've got the addition of the night tube that's been introduced. So that's 24/7 running on the weekend. So that's more duties for fewer workers. So if you look at other professions that also have these kinds of duties, so I'm talking about like firefighters and paramedics and nurses and police officers and air traffic controllers, they also have 4-day weeks. That is not unusual. You're treating it like it's an unusual situation. But the
nurses
people
have 4-day weeks because they're often doing 12, 13, 40 hours.
They're doing night shifts.
Yes,
that's the point.
But they're also doing longer shifts. I mean, Ashok, if you find a nurse that does 7-hour shifts, none of the nurses I know are doing 7-hour shifts.
The point I'm trying to say is the 4-day demand is because they're working night shifts, often and late shifts. They're starting at 4 a.m. and they get 1 p.m. 1 a.m.
So yes, so are nurses.
Excuse me. Exactly. So that's why they have 4 days. They don't work all 5 days. And so the point about the economy, etc. The fact is that we've generated 160 million just this year, and we had like record-breaking surpluses in the last 3 years. The people that are that have benefited in the TFL from this are those on over 100K salaries, senior managers who this year alone got 22% pay increases, and they're working 9 to 5. They're not working late nights. They're not working on weekends. They're not working 24/7. And what the RMT is saying is, and the workers who are actually working on the front line are saying, we deserve a little bit more than 3%. That's what they're saying.
But the idea that a generation ago people weren't working more than 7 hours a day is obviously ridiculous. 7 hours a day for anybody in any point in history, Ashok, would have been considered pretty cushy.
The point is that they're working late hours, they're working all night, they're starting early, they're ending late. And so when that happens, you're making it an average. They're not working 7-hour shifts. They're working 9, 10, 11-hour shifts, and then they're getting 1 extra day off because they're working late and they're working early. No one's working a 7-hour shift, man. Like when you average it out, it makes it look ridiculous. No one's doing that. But the point is that they're working average shifts. They happen to be working all night sometimes. They happen to work early. They happen to work very late. By the time they get home, it's even later. So the point is to recalibrate their schedules that they get a sufficient amount of time off. It's not exceptional. Air traffic controllers get this. Police officers get this. It's not exceptional is my point.
But I put it to you that the pressures on an air traffic controller and the absolute intensity of the concentration, obviously there is a stronger case for them working shorter shift patterns than a tube driver. I mean, that just goes without saying, Ashok.
I mean, I don't want my tube driver exhausted and fatigued and sleepless.
No, but you're not directly comparing the focus required to an air traffic controller, are you?
I'm using examples of other workplaces.
I'm saying you can't compare the two.
Working very late, having exhausted workers is also a public safety issue. So I'm making examples.
Ashok, loads of people do that. If you work in security, if you're a taxi driver, if you work in hospitality, if you are a nurse, if you are a police, there's so many jobs that require...
but that's what I'm saying. Nurses and police officers, when they work night shifts, get time off. My mom was a doctor. She worked all night, 2 nights a week, so she got extra days off. That's very normal in jobs in which people are working.
As do RMT members.
Yes. No, but that's what they're saying. They're saying we're working late, working all night, in which it didn't exist prior to COVID. We have 2,000 fewer workers, so now people are working more hours, later, earlier, and all night. And so because of that, we need a sufficient amount of time for rest.
They're working on average 3.5 days a week.
I think that's a reasonable...
Doing an average of 7 hours a day, and that is apparently too much.
Wait, no, that's not true. They're not working 7 hours a day, 3 days a week. That's not true. I mean, that's like that. The math is adding up. Right now, they're working 35 hours on average.
Yep.
And that's not 3.5 days, 7 hours a day.
I read they do 3.5 days a week on average.
Okay.
Which works out across the year at about 35 hours a week.
Okay, but you said 7 hours a day. They're not working. You can either have it one way or another. You can say 7 hours a day and they're working 5 days a week, or you're saying they're working 3 hours.
Yeah, fine. I take your point.